consulting firm that we get to run together to take the message of Gracism and Dr. Anderson's work around building bridges across the deepest divides of color, class, and culture. We get to take that on the road and around the world. So I'm just honored to sit in for Dr. Anderson today while he's out. Doc, we can't wait for you to be back and wish you well as you are away. Today, though, is Tough Topic Tuesday, and I think we've got a great show for you as you're listening, wherever you are. Tough Topic Tuesday today, we're going to be talking about good cops and bad cops. Is there redemption for a cop who is convicted of corruption? You know, today we have a guest on the show who has a story that you don't want to miss. We'll let you speak into this as well, as we really do ask that question. What do we do when a cop goes haywire and does things that are so extreme that he himself is convicted? Then he comes back onto the scene with a story to share. What do we do with that? And so today we'll have our guest, Mr. Andrew Collins, calling in to share his story and the work that he's doing today. Is it possible to work through that hurt and the pain that was caused by his actions, while at the same time also giving him a platform to speak up against that same kind of injustice that he participated in? This is real stuff, and this is a real story. And what we want to do today is unpack that and really see what kind of impact that can make on the community. Today, if you want to call in and talk about police and community and building a bridge between the two, you can call in at 888-432-7434. And we want to hear from you wherever you are around the DMV. Broadcasting on WAVA 105.1. And also, you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube on Dr. Anderson's Facebook page and YouTube page at Anderson Speaks. If you write in the chat, I'll say hi to you there as well. So wherever you're calling in from, listening in from, we just wanted to say hi. In your car, at your desk, at home. This actually is part of a series with the Heal America campaign. We've been doing a couple of different episodes specifically looking at how do you build a bridge between police and community. And through the Heal America Foundation, run by Dr. DeForest Soares and Anton Lucky, they had a really great program all over the nation happening this summer called the Summer of Healing, where they connected leaders from all sorts of different communities that were looking to build bridges between community members and police, hopefully reducing violent crime. So we're just glad to be a part of that. Today is Tough Topic Tuesday. You know how it goes here, though. Marriage Monday, Tough Topic Tuesday, Wisdom Wednesday, Theological Thursday, and Open Phone-In Friday. Well, let's pray for this show, and I can't wait to introduce you to our guest for today. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to build a bridge where there's a deep divide and to have a conversation where there's pain and hurt and division, Lord, hopefully looking for your direction. So, Father, I pray that as we begin to enter into this conversation, Lord, you would guide us and you would teach us, because you, oh Lord, are the great bridge builder. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Here we go. You know, this is Tough Topic Tuesday, and today we're talking about police and community. Is there redemption for a cop who was convicted of corruption? And I want to introduce to you our guest for today, Mr. Andrew Collins. Andrew, you're on the line there.
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Andrew, thanks for calling in. For those of the people that are listening that have never heard your story before, they're in for a doozy, huh?
Yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how to look at it anymore. It was unfortunate, the actions that I walked through, but I think it's fortunate to have the opportunity to talk about it in hindsight.
Well, we're honored that you would share your story with us and engage in a difficult conversation. So as people are listening around DC, some of them are coming home from work on their car ride. Some of them are sitting at home or maybe even at their desk. And they're going to hear a story of an officer who had many different seasons of his life up to this point. And so instead of reading your bio, which I could, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this. If someone Googled your name in 2005, what would they have found? In 2005, if they would have put Andrew Collins, police officer, what kind of things would they be hearing about you in 2005?
Yeah, so in 2005, I'd have been 2 years into my career. I was 23 years old, and at that point, they would have seen that I had won some awards, Police Officer of the Year for the city of Benton Harbor. They would have saw, I think, an FBI award, just my part in a racketeering investigation that led to a ton of arrests, and the FBI had given me a certificate or an award for that. So I think people would have seen somebody who was an aggressive police officer who was trying to clean up the streets of Benton Harbor.
Wow. And so I would imagine it's a story that could be told about a number of different types of police officers all over the country, of people who are on the surface looking like they're doing their job and doing it well, and really fulfilling that mission to protect and serve. But then if we fast forward to 2010 and somebody Googles police officer Andrew Collins, what would they hear then?
Yeah, I mean, feel free and Google it because it'll come up. Andrew Collins convicted for possession of crack cocaine with intent to deliver, and potentially looking, I mean, by 2010, I had already served my sentence, or been convicted at least. But in 2008, 9, I was looking at potential, 22 federal crimes and upwards of 20 plus years in prison. Federal racketeering was thrown out there. Civil rights violations were being looked at. The possession of heroin, crack, marijuana, embezzlement. A ton of parts of corruption that were in my life between 2003 when I became a police officer and 2008 when I was no longer a police officer.
Wow. It's so hard for us to hear a story like that, where somebody that has community trust and is there on the surface to protect and serve and keep our streets safe, that all that was happening underneath the surface. Yeah.
And in a way where I felt emboldened and justified in a lot of what I was doing, to the point where when I was caught, I was surprised. I had convinced myself that most of my administrators and most of my coworkers knew what I was doing. And I think some of that is just human psychology of minimizing the bad things we do and justifying the wrong that we commit. But a lot of it was also systemic, where I had walked through moments where instead of a check and balance being there for me, I kind of just had carte blanche to do what I wanted as a young officer. So in one hand, I hold the fact that I had individual choices, that I chose wrong and I did really, really bad things. And in the other hand, I hold the fact that there was a system that held me up while I did those things.
Wow. And that's a place of conversation around these issues of police and hard issues of injustice that we want to navigate in this call right here and on this show right here. So we'll be back to hear more of Mr. Collins' story.
Have you ever walked into your basement and there was that smell? You weren't quite sure what it was: mold, mildew, cracks, or blistered paint in your walls? Well, listen, you need to call Best Buy Waterproofing. They'll come by, give you a free inspection, and they'll let you know, is it water wreaking havoc on the foundation of your home? They have more than 30 years of experience, and they're ready to give you and all my listeners a free basement inspection. All you got to do is give them a call, 844-980-3707. One more time, here's the number, 844-980-3707. 3707 or check them out at bestbuywaterproofing.com. And by the way, if you do business with them, they'll donate $500 to support my radio ministry. So give them a call, Best Buy Waterproofing.
When asked the question raised by her professor, why are you here at Omega Graduate School? Sebla Digluhailu answered in one of her essays like this: I was not there just to add a prefix to my name, though that would feel good. The greater purpose of my preparation at OGS is to fulfill my mandate to be a change agent. The doctoral study is a time of preparation for me to see and to think, to understand the times, and to craft my way in fulfilling my calling. Sebla Digluhailu, a current Doctor of Philosophy student from Ethiopia, is a counselor and adjunct psychology professor who hosts a weekly radio show in the capital city of Ethiopia and is an advocate for empowering women and children. What is your profession, and how can OGS help you grow to the next level in your graduate education? Dr. David Anderson is the new chancellor of Omega Graduate School, formerly known as Oxford Graduate School, and your education as a working adult is important to him, to God, and to all who will be changed in the world because of your important research. Go to ogs.edu today and apply, or call 1-800-933-6188.
Have you ever listened to Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson and wondered how we come up with heartfelt discussions on Marriage Mondays or engaging topics on Tough Topic Tuesdays? Well, our listeners are our inspiration. We would love to keep hearing from you. So if you have an idea for the show, let us know, because comprehension begins with conversation. Send us your ideas by sending an email to info@andersonspeaks.com and join the conversation on Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson. For more information about this program or for resources from Dr. Anderson, please visit andersonspeaks.com. To watch on Facebook Live or to view past episodes, visit Dr. Anderson's public figure Facebook page. Just search Dr. David Anderson and click like. You can also watch live on YouTube. Just search for Anderson Speaks, all one word, and make sure to subscribe. Join our text community and receive a free weekly textpiration from Dr. Anderson. Just text the word INSPIRE to 97000. That's INSPIRE to 97000. And now, back to Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson.
Welcome back. It's Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson. I'm Dave Heiliger, filling in for Dr. Anderson as he's away today, and it's Tough Topic Tuesday, and today we're talking about good cops and bad cops. Is there redemption for a cop who is convicted of corruption? And if you listen to that first segment, we've got Andrew Collins on the phone, who was an officer in Benton Harbor, Michigan, where we left it off, Andrew, you were talking about how you went from a career or the start of a career, very much interested in being that cop that really does fulfill that mission to protect and serve, but ended up falling into and making some decisions that took you into a path of corruption and drug dealing and money laundering and stealing. There's so many parts of your story that had hurt for people. In your bio, you say in 4.5 years, you went from receiving awards from the FBI to being indicted by them for corruption and narcotics possession. Andrew, but your story doesn't stop there. Tell us a little. Well, you spent 18 months in prison. Is that right for your conviction?
Correct.
18 months in prison and was released, and your story changes as you start a life beyond that. Can you tell us about what changed for you in those years of being faced with the reality of the hurt and pain and wrongs that you did commit as an officer?
Yeah, I would say that within days of being caught and realizing that my police career was over, there was this huge shift in me from feeling bad for myself for what had happened to really feeling bad for the things I had done, and being able to step back and be removed from that place of power and saying, whatever gave me the right to think that I could do the things that I did. So there was this reconciling happening within me, I'd also, like, I grew up in the church. I grew up as a Christian. I had a lot of faith crises while I was a police officer, things that I would, kind of bounce off of trusted friends or other police officers, things I struggled with as a supposed man of faith and a police officer. And I threw my faith out the window once I went corrupt, and I stopped going to church, didn't want to think about it, and caught on a Tuesday, thought about ending my life. And my wife saw that I was struggling and said, I think you need to go talk to that pastor, because I had been dabbling with churches. And so I sat down with the pastor on day 3, 3 days removed from being a police officer. And that day forever changed my life with a simple question of, where are you at with Jesus? And I knew I didn't deserve the grace that Jesus was offering, but I also felt like, for whatever reason, the grace was offered. And from that point forward, I said, regardless of where this goes, regardless of what my punishment is, I want to make the rest of my life something that shines for God's kingdom. And I feel like a part of that is talking about those bad things that I did as a police officer and trying to raise awareness of how we can try to make sure that these things don't happen again. Because, again, in one hand, I had personal decisions. In the other hand, I had a system that allowed me to walk through with those personal decisions. So I went to prison, kind of joked that I did 18 months of prison ministry. And when I got out, I just wanted to hit the ground running. I wanted to go back into Benton Harbor and just find people who I had wronged. And I wanted to apologize to them. I wanted to make things right. God is a God of reconciliation, and I believe that he was calling me to be reconciled. And one of those individuals was a guy named Jamel McGee, who I tried to apologize to. I ran into him at an event in a park, and he wasn't ready. He wasn't having it. He felt all the pain and all the frustration. My lies and my corruption got him a 10-year federal prison sentence.
Wow.
And he got out after 3 years because I was caught and because I told the truth about what I had done. And so he was released, and then we ran into each other after I got out, and all that pain and all that suffering came back on his shoulders as he saw me. And
I can't imagine
as
that
I tried
moment,
to make my
right. I can't imagine moment when you see each other face to face, and for you, all the emotions that go along with that, and for him, all the pain and hurt and just
that's it.
Anger. I can't imagine what would happen in a moment like that when two people stand face to face. And for you, what did that turn into?
Yeah, so he asked me one simple question. He said, tell my son why he missed out on 3 years of his daddy's life. Wow. And his son, Jacarius, was standing right there with him.
Oh, my goodness.
And I fumbled my best to try to apologize and just try to explain to him how I knew in that moment, where I'm standing with him in the park, how awful of a person I used to be. And as I'm trying to make the apology, Jamel like I said, I don't think he was ready that day to accept it because of all the pain he was feeling and the anger. And reconciliation did not come that day. Neither did a hospital visit, which could have been my story. Right. He was very angry, as he should have been. And then years later, I was working at a nonprofit in Benton Harbor. This is where I met Dr. Anderson, and Jamel was coming through a program that we supported called Jobs for Life. And we got matched up as mentor-mentee. Some people believe in coincidences and some people believe in God's will. And so as we're having a conversation, that initial meeting, the meet and greet, I'm going through the whole, hey, I used to be a police officer. I used to do some awful things in this city. And he's kind of looking at me like I'm crazy. And finally I just stopped and I said, well, what's so funny? Why does this feel so weird? He said, you don't remember? We had this conversation.
Wow.
And I said, we did. And he said, Broadway Park. And it had been so many years that I'd forgotten what he looked like and who he was really. But that brought me right back to that moment. And I had the chance there to apologize again. And this day he accepted it. And we started walking through with a friendship, which grew into a brotherhood. And we wrote a book together, and we've traveled the world and spoke about reconciliation and our hope to try to bring communities together. And it's been a story that I don't deserve. And God's love and God's grace live for me in a human body named Jamel McGee because of the way that he has forgiven me and accepted me. Wow. And he's opened my eyes to a lot of things I was unaware of, a lot of places I was ignorant, things like traveling together and I get keys for a hotel room and they won't give him keys for a hotel room because he's a very dark-skinned black man, and I am a very white Caucasian man. And just seeing the differences in how he's treated compared to me when we travel together has been another level of just being, sorry about that, just having my eyes opened to some of the struggles that people who don't look like me have to live through.
So it's apology, forgiveness, reconciliation, healing. They're all different stages of the process. It's not like it all comes at the same time. And I bet as much as we might hear the condensed version of this, I bet it was a roller coaster of emotion and of working through different layers of the hurt and pain and trying to sort out how does a person move forward after the person who essentially wrecked your life is now a part of it again. And the different stages of that. I'd love to talk more about that. But you and Jamel wrote a book. Is that right? It's
We did.
Convicted, an innocent man, the cop who framed him, and an unlikely journey of forgiveness and friendship. Congratulations on that. I mean, putting that story into words so it can have an impact beyond the two of you. That offering of vulnerability is honestly something that can have a huge impact. Thanks for doing that and putting the work into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest gifts for me is as I read Jamel's, the book is written one chapter from my perspective, one from his, and to be able to read how similarly we grew up, yet how differently we grew up. We both had trauma in our families. I grew up in lily white America. He grew up, in the tough streets of Benton Harbor. So there are massive differences in how we grew up, but there's also some similarities that I would have never known had we not done this project together.
And so as your story is coming to the forefront of public awareness, the two of you, and the story of forgiveness and reconciliation and the movement that you have around issues of police brutality, police corruption, issues within the system, racial reconciliation, racial harm and racial healing, all of that put together, then we step into the last 8 years that our society has had, and where the issues around police and community, racial issues between police and people of color and communities of color, you've now gotten a chance to take some of your story and make it a learning lesson and teaching for a couple of different venues and avenues. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I've been privileged enough to speak in front of the Michigan State Police a few times. Jamel and I spoke at the Little Rock, Arkansas Police Department. There's been several colleges and universities that we've spoken to. Just last week, I was at a university here in Michigan, speaking to a law class. These are future prosecutors and defense attorneys that I have the opportunity to say, hey, instead of reading out of a textbook this story about corruption, hear straight from the horse's mouth.
Wow. Well, that's
how.
Let's explore that a little bit more when we come back from this break. And if you have a question for our guest, 888-432-7434, join the conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson. I'm Dave Heiliger, filling in for Dr. Anderson today. I am the director of Gracism Global. It's the consulting organization that Dr. Anderson started in order to expand his work of Gracism around the world. And we get to partner together as we build bridges of reconciliation and healing and understanding across the deepest divides of color, class, and culture. And this summer, we've been partnering with the Heal America campaign as they have had an initiative across the country to elevate the stories of people who are looking to build bridges between police and community, helping to heal divides that hopefully reduce violent crime and also help to heal some of these hurts that have happened that all of us have become more and more aware of as injustice issues have done some deep damage to communities across the country. And so with the Heal America campaign, we've been highlighting stories of different people who are addressing this divide in different ways. And today, on this Tough Topic Tuesday, we're talking about good cops and bad cops. And the question, is there redemption for a cop who is convicted of corruption? And you've heard the story of Mr. Andrew Collins, police officer in Benton Harbor, who at 21 years old became a police officer, and within a couple of years turned into an officer he never thought he would end up being, and was then convicted by the FBI of corruption and narcotics possession, spent time in jail, but has since had an unbelievable story, really miraculous, right, Andrew? A miraculous story of forgiveness and reconciliation with one of the men that was put behind bars because of some of the wrongs that you did as you were in your position. Reconciliation, forgiveness, friendship, and now a platform to begin to speak into some of these issues that are systemic across the board around the country when it comes to policing of mainly inner city communities, Black and brown communities, and how there's disparity that still needs to be addressed. Andrew, you said you've been doing some work at universities for law students. You've been doing some work in police academies with those up and coming in law enforcement. I have a question. You know, as people are listening, you said there's some decisions that you made that you'd say, man, that was really me. And then you say there's some systemic issues. When you stand before a group of officers, active duty officers, or those that are coming up through the police academy, what's your main message to them as you really look to address some of these issues of injustice that exist even still, that maybe even perpetuate some of the wrongs that you were able to participate in back in the early 2000s?
Yeah, I think there's a few different spaces to talk about. One is just the conversation about integrity and ethics, that there's nothing, if for no other reason than you don't want to lose your career, don't do bad things. If we can just meet at that really selfish place where it's just all about you and about your career, let me tell you, it's a lot harder once you have a felony on your record to try to build a career when all you thought you'd ever do is be a police officer. So if we can just meet there, I think we'd be okay. But if you care a little bit more about humanity and about your job as a police officer and as a public servant, I think then we start talking about just the lack of education when it comes to white police officers and Black and brown communities. I was heartbroken at 35 years old to be walking through the streets of Birmingham and learning about all this injustice from the civil rights era that were perpetuated by white police officers on a Black community. And, I had, seen Forrest Gump, and I had, we had Black History Month in high school, but I had never known in detail, like, one square block in Alabama holds so much history of death and despair and racism. And I was like, how did I make it through an associate's degree in college? How did I make it through a police academy without ever talking about the fact that these issues have been there for generations? And yet at 21 years old, I'm dumped off into a predominantly Black community where I don't live, but I drive into that community every day to tell those people how to live their lives.
Wow.
We're missing the mark there. So systemically speaking, that is an issue that I believe we have, and that I try to speak into. And at this point, I don't know if there's much education in the academic setting. So that falls on the police officer to educate themselves. If you end up in a community that doesn't look like you, and that culturally has not lived like you, it's on you to educate yourself as to what that culture looks like and acts like and feels like and dreams like, and what the ideologies are.
And
how would you ever know unless you educate yourself?
All of that matters, right? With every interaction you have as an officer with the people who are living in that community, all of that matters. Their backstory, their family dynamics, what that community and culture values, and all of the past hurt and harm that's happened around them, that is all brought into every interaction that somebody in that community has with a police officer. When you add in the power dynamics of who's in charge and who's going to be listened to and which testimony are they going to believe, all of that matters when it comes to an officer's interaction with the people they are tasked with serving and protecting. And what you're saying is there's just no real education around that. Again, I want to dive a little bit deeper into this as we move forward. And if you're listening, we'd love for you to join the conversation as well. If you've got some hard questions for this former officer, 888-432-7434. Join the conversation, and we'll be right back after these messages.
What are you typing?
I'm looking for a church to watch online this Sunday.
Hey, you should check out bridgeway.cc.
Bridgeway? I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, I attended in person before COVID, but they still have great online services. Bridgeway is non-denominational, it's creative, it's multicultural, and the messages are powerful.
Awesome. I'm going to check them out.
Yes, their online services are amazing, and so are their in-person services. Worship is incredible. I mean, we're talking biblical messages that are practical, and they have creative elements too, like dances and dramas. It's really captivating and relevant.
Wow. Now, what about my kids?
Children's program is awesome. Our daughter can't wait to get online every Sunday. Now, how often do you hear that?
That sounds great.
Tell you what, they're live on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday. Which do you use?
Facebook.
Okay, cool. I'll set up a watch party for Sunday at 10. Be there.
Okay, I think you got a deal. I'll be there on Facebook at 10 Sunday morning.
Search for Bridgeway Community Church on YouTube and Facebook every Sunday at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or just go to bridgeway.cc. And feel free to visit us in person at 945 in Columbia or 1130 at our Owings Mills Reisterstown campus.
If you live in the Bowie, Greenbelt, Glendale, or Woodmore area, anywhere in that vicinity, guess what? Laser Landscaping LLC wants to make your lawn look beautiful. They will mow your lawn. They'll edge around the outskirts of your lawn. They'll put up plants, whatever you need to make your house pop. They'll do it for you. Give them a call, 240-516-4967. That's 240-516-4967. Ask for the owner, Fidel, and tell him that Dr. Anderson sent you.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson. I'm Dave Heiliger filling in for Doc today as he's out. Doc, we can't wait for you to come back. In the meantime, we're holding it down here on Tough Topic Tuesday, talking about the divide between community and police and looking at the tough topic about good cops and bad cops. Is there redemption for a cop who is convicted of corruption? Andrew, you've been sharing your story with us of just an absolute roller coaster of hard experiences, decisions, and pain that's come from it, but then a story where you're really trying to leverage the backstory for making sure that the same injustices don't don't happen again. Hey, Andrew, we got a couple people on the line. I'd love to start taking some calls, and maybe we can include some other people in this conversation. Let's go to Jada in Greenbelt. Jada, thanks for joining us on the show today. Do you have a question or a comment for us?
Hi. I love this story, and I do have a question. My question is, well, first, thank you for sharing your story and writing the book and dedicating your life to this. But what do you do when you encounter those, bad cops that kind of refuse to understand or desire to not understand, or not even cops, maybe just lawyers or people that don't believe in injustice or all of these things? And how do you advise people to deal with those kinds of people?
That's a great, thank you, Jada, for that. It's really true, Andrew. Not everybody's going to hear your story and just say, "Oh, you're right. Please teach us everything about systemic injustice within the criminal legal system." What do you do when you face resistance? Some of the people that dig their heels in.
Yeah, I think that's with any type of disagreement or debate that we have. We can't take somebody to where they don't want to go. The best I can do is articulate from my story. I think that's where I'm able to go a little bit further in those conversations, because it's not just this idea out of a textbook or these phrases that get tossed around and kind of get buzzwords behind them or whatever. But I can say, no, I was there. I watched officers plant drugs. I watched officers lie in front of prosecutors. I lied to prosecutors. Like, I was there. I did it. So I think it sucks the wind out of the conversation of, well, maybe it's here. Maybe no, I'm telling you it's here, and I'm telling you that I experienced it. But at some level, with anybody you're having a conversation with, they may just not want to accept it. And unfortunately, that happens all the time. As far as officers, in our interactions, they have all the power. If they don't want to talk to me, they don't have to talk to me. So whether it's an academic setting where the police officers are generally the trainers, I've had a couple of people who have just completely turned and walked out of a seminar that I'm leading. Had a director of a law enforcement program tell me that he had one of his trainers who was kind of tainting the audience before I got there, telling them don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth, had planted a couple really hard questions in with the students. And I have no problem answering the hard questions, but it was very clear that the audience had been turned against me before I even started. So
Jada, what
great question, but I think it's hard.
Yeah. Jada, what are your thoughts as you hear that kind of answer?
My thoughts?
Yeah, Jada, you hear that? It's not a clean cut. This is the answer I give everybody, and this is what always works.
Well, yeah. I think it's. I guess not to. I don't want to say over spiritualize it, but I think that's just how it is in general. Even with the gospel, it's just like sometimes people don't want to hear it. They're turned against it. All these things, and so I definitely understand. But I just wondered, like, is there, I don't know if there's some kind of tactic you have to make everyone believe you, but of
Right.
course there probably. Then do you ever deal with, that feelings of like guilt still, even though like you're forgiven even by Jamil? Do you ever feel like?
Yeah, Andrew, where does that sit for you, Andrew?
Yeah.
Do you still deal with those feelings of remorse and regret and pain and guilt?
Yeah, just to use Jamel and I as the analogy, there's several times where we've traveled different places, and I've just turned to him and said, "Man, like this new wave of guilt has just washed over me, and I just need in this moment to confess to you that I'm again so sorry." And it was much more at the beginning of our friendship and our traveling together. And it finally just got to a point where he's like, "Look, dude, this is no longer for me. This is for you. You aren't apologizing to me. At this point, I've forgiven you. I've told you you're forgiven. We've talked about this so many times. This is no longer about you having to restore me. This is about you, and now I have to restore you because you're feeling guilty." And now that becomes toxic.
Wow.
It's not my job as the man who was wronged to make you feel better as the one who wronged me.
Wow.
And another
big.
great
That's
learning
big,
moment.
Andrew. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. another great learning moment for my friend who has just taught me so much, and he's been so patient with me. And it's given me hope that one, I don't have to walk in guilt anymore. But with that doesn't make me an arrogant person who says I never did wrong. I still walk in the realization of how bad I was. And as we talk about like the over spiritualization, I mean, Jada, I was this, as I share with people, those who believe and know that injustice is in the world, I think I'm a sweet aroma to them, stealing from the Apostle Paul. But to those who don't want to see what's right in front of their face, I'm a stench to them. I speak against the thing that they believe in. So,
wow. Thanks, Jada, for calling in. Really appreciate you, and thanks so much for joining the conversation here. Let's go to somebody else. Let's go to Mike, who's on the road. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Mike, good to hear your voice. Do you have a comment or question for our guest today?
Yeah, there, Pastor Dave. I got a couple questions, and then two questions, then I'll just listen off the air if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I'm wondering what, you're a cop. You're wanting to be the good guy in the white hat. What were the first seeds? What were the first steps that, someone wanted you to put on the black hat and be the bad guy? And how, what were they, and how did it, how did that struggle to become the bad guy happen? And then number two, wow, a cop in prison. Did you do that time in protective custody, or were you on general population? Because I got to think there's a lot of prison gangs who'd like to get a hold of you.
Wow, those are really good. Yeah. Really good questions. We're going to go to a break pretty quick, but before we do, Andrew, how about you take, Mike, thanks for calling in. We really appreciate you joining the conversation here as well. Actually, let's hold your responses to those questions till after we come back from our break. But before we do, I just want to just say thank you to everybody who's listening in on this. And you can still join the conversation, 888-432-7434. We've been talking with Andrew Collins, who was a police officer in Benton Harbor, Michigan, got involved in some deep corruption, caused deep harm to a number of individuals, but has this road to redemption after being convicted and incarcerated, and come out to build a relationship with one of the men that whose lives was really ruined and destroyed because of his work. They now travel around the country, speaking to law students, to police academies, people who are on the front lines of the criminal legal system, to try to correct some of the wrongs that allowed him to commit some of these injustices as he wore that uniform. So as we look forward to what's coming up next, when you think about redemption in your life, and as you think about forgiveness and healing in the relationships around you, we zoom way out to talk about these big issues of injustice and racial healing and healing around community injustice. But could we learn a couple of things from this path to redemption and forgiveness from this story of Mr. Andrew Collins? So we'll be right back. Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson. I'm Dave Heiliger filling in for Dr. Anderson as he's out today. And we've been hanging with Andrew Collins on this Tough Topic Tuesday. The question today is there redemption for a cop who is convicted of corruption? And we've been diving into Andrew Collins' story of being a police officer who was convicted for narcotics possession, corruption, ended up serving time in prison, came out, reconciled with one of the men that he put behind bars, and they together have been looking to fight the systemic issues that perpetuate the kind of injustices that he participated in back when he was a police officer. Andrew, before we went to that last break, we had a caller that asked two questions. One, what were the first steps of going down this path? And we're coming to the close of the show here, so we'll have to make it a little bit short, but what were those first signs of going down the path from good cop to bad cop?
Yeah, so for me, it was the first time I had angst that I couldn't pull a vehicle over because I just felt like something was wrong with it just felt like the people were up to no good, but everything was fine with the vehicle. And I had an older officer tell me, just make something up. Just simply make something up. And you can always justify why you pull a vehicle over. So that was the first seed that was planted that grew, that sprouted into what eventually became full outright corruption.
My goodness. And if you could go back and shout at that young officer, at you in that moment to say, no, hold on to your integrity, where would that story have gone differently? And then our caller also asked, you were a police officer in prison. I mean, were you under protective custody? What was that like?
No, I didn't walk in and say, hey guys, I used to be a cop. People would ask, what are you in for? And I'd say possession of crack with intent to deliver. And I knew enough about the drug game that I could talk my way through a conversation and just say, look, I don't want to talk about that stuff. That's my past. I'm looking at the future. So
gotcha.
God protected me through that. My
goodness. Well, we are so thankful that God did protect you through that and that there is redemption. I'm sure there are people who are listening that as they hear your story, they say, yes, there's redemption. Yes, there's forgiveness in the Lord, but man, it still hurts. And what would you want to say to folks that they just still hurt when they hear your story?
Yeah, I'd say that I stand with you. I know the pain that I caused an entire community. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to take back the things I did. But what I can do is stand with you and fight against those things happening again. So when people come to me and express the anger, that's all I can do is say, yeah, I'm sorry, and I feel where you're at. I know how my actions caused that, and I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for not adding a but at the end of that statement and just letting that be an apology.
No.
So you are, we appreciate your ministry. We appreciate the work that you're doing going forward. As we're looking to continue to build bridges across the deepest divides, people check out the book Convicted, An Innocent Man, the Cop Who Framed Him, and An Unlikely Journey of Forgiveness and Friendship. You can find that on Amazon by our good friend, Mr. Andrew Collins and Jamel McGee. Andrew, thanks for joining us for this hour. Your story hopefully has inspired some people to take a second look at what injustice means within our criminal legal system and look for ways to overcome it. Can you give your email address really quick if people want to get in touch with you for having you come out and talk? Well, actually, we'll put that in the notes and I'll just pray us out here. Jesus, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to find redemption and forgiveness in you. In Jesus' name, amen. Father.